Jai Sadgurudev, everyone. So, in our previous episodes, we have discussed how we, the conscious eternal souls, who were once in the perpetual enjoyment of bliss of the Lord, are now trapped in three layers of the mortal world. The first layer being the layer of ignorance, the second layer being the layer of the unnatural association of us, the conscious souls, with the inert Prakriti or the mortal world and its attributes. And finally, the third layer, the layer of conduct of deeds, which binds us to their consequences. The only way out of this morass is the acquisition of the experiential knowledge of Brahmvidya, which, as you all know, is the knowledge of all entities that exist. This knowledge of Brahmvidya can be attained only through the benevolence of the Sadguru. But the Sadguru is authorized to grant this knowledge only to the most eligible and deserved souls. Why is that? It is because eligible and deserved souls are able to acquire, absorb, and retain this knowledge of Brahmvidya. And this is an experiential knowledge. This is a conscious knowledge. In our previous episodes, we have discussed some of the many pathways that exist in the world towards the acquisition of eligibility for the grant of Brahmvidya. Today, we shall dwell upon the 4S framework of the Vihangam Yoga for the acquisition of eligibility. So the 4S framework of Vihangam Yoga consists of 4 legs or components. The first is the Swadhyay, the second is Satsang, third is Seva, and the fourth is Sadhana. Today, we will focus on the first 2 components, that is the Swadhyay and the Satsang. But before we delve into them, let us quickly recap the 2 aspects of Brahmvidya. Now, we have seen in our previous episodes that Brahmvidya has 2 components or 2 aspects. There is a theoretical understanding, and then there is a practical understanding of the various aspects of Brahmvidya through experiential meditation. The 4S framework of Vihangam Yoga addresses both these aspects of Brahmvidya. Having said that, now let's go deeper into the first of the 4 S's, that is the Swadhyay. Swadhyay has 2 connotations, both of which relate to self-study. The first aspect of Swadhyay is the study of spiritual literature, such as the Saurabh. What is Saurabh? Saurabh is the encyclopedia of spirituality. It consists of more than 3,000 originally composed verses, born out of 17 years of rigorous meditative experiences of the proponent of the Vihangam Yoga organization, Sadguru Sadafal Devji Maharaj. Now, as some of us know, Vihangam Yoga Singapore had recently organized a nearly 24-hour-long continuous recitation of the Saurabh by people from across 18 countries spread all over the world. So one may then wonder as to why we must read the Saurabh, or why must we even hear somebody recite the verses from the Saurabh? There are many reasons why we must do so. And we must not only do this, we must do this on a very regular basis. What are the reasons? First, through the regular reading of the verses of the Saurabh, noticeable positive changes have been observed in disciples, including but not limited to positivity of thoughts, positivity of speech, positivity in action, renunciation from addictions of various kinds. The reading or listening of the Swarved triggers feelings of love, compassion, empathy. It causes the consciousness of our souls to detach from the mortal world and turns it inwards and upwards. What happens as a result? It vastly improves the meditative experience of a practitioner. It results in faster progress towards awakening of the hitherto sleeping energy and opening of that secretive 10th door. It dispels the darkness of doubt and ignorance and brings the light of knowledge into the seeker. Swarved helps understand the self, the soul, as well as the Lord. By recitation of Swarved, one comes closer to knowing what is worth knowing and what must be known. Hence, we need to realize that the recitation of Swarved impacts the reciter as well as the listener in multiple ways. Why? Because the knowledge of Brahm Vidya itself is infinite. Mere listening to the recitation of Swarved brings about a shift in our consciousness. Why is that? This is because this is a mechanism for the transmission of the Swati or the divine conscious energy of the Sadguru entity into the reciter or the listener. So on a broad brush overall basis, we can say that we must regularly recite the Swarved verses and listen to their recitation by others, because in the process of so doing, we become better human beings. And by becoming better human beings, we naturally become more eligible towards the grant of the knowledge of Brahm Vidya. Now, let's move to another connotation of Swadhyay, that is self-introspection. What is self-introspection and how does it help? It helps us in two ways. When we self-introspect, it helps us to identify our vices and it helps us to get rid of them, because awareness is the first step. It also helps us to adopt the virtues of others. But while we are making comparison of ourselves with others, it is prudent not to focus on the vices of others, but rather we should be interested in picking up and imbibing the virtues of others. And at the same time, we must look at our own vices and make efforts to get rid of them. There's another word of caution. While we are dealing with people with vices, we must be very careful only to imbibe their virtues, because otherwise there is a great risk of loss in being in their company, because we may end up either acquiring their vices also, or we may also become victim of their vices. So self-introspection is a must in life, because it helps in identifying and getting rid of our vices, while at the same time we are adopting the virtues of others. Unless this happens, or unless we do this, life will not become pure and we will not become eligible to make efforts towards achieving our objectives. On the other hand, if we are able to make these changes, then we will be able to also work for the welfare of the country, community, and society. There's another aspect of self-introspection. It helps us evaluate the progress of our own meditation. When conscious attributes begin to take root and the effect of the inert attributes of Prakriti or the mortal world begin to wane, then the meditation practitioner gets a self-feedback that everything is going good for him in his meditation. And this is the way the progress of meditation is to be evaluated. Therefore, a meditation practitioner should also regularly keep self-introspecting so that the pathway for future progress in his meditation is purified and strengthened. Now let's move to the second S of the 4S framework of Vihangam Yoga. This is the satsang. Now, according to Saurabh, the Sadguru is the embodiment of truth, and his company for the purpose of attaining complete knowledge is called the satsang, which is the short form of satsangati. Through his company, truth is adopted, falsehood is discarded, the soul becomes firmly established in righteousness. The company of the Sadguru and the saints helps people to acquire knowledge about truth and falsehood. And all knowledge of spirituality or the whole of Brahmvidya is actually situated within the Sadguru. The company of the Sadguru and the saints, even for a few days, leads to renouncement of falsehood, adoption of truth, illumination of all parts of the body with knowledge. Now we must realize that even though the ancient sages and their children were masters of the Vedas and related scriptures, they still took refuge under the Sadguru for complete knowledge of Brahmvidya and for achieving lasting peace. The Upanishads make several such references. For example, Sukesh and other sages who were adept in the Vedas and their affiliate scriptures took refuge of the great saint Pipalad to get the knowledge of Brahmvidya. Similarly, sage Budil and others went to the king of Kaikeya, Ashwapati, to get the knowledge of Brahmvidya. The divine deity Narad was the master of 14 sciences, yet he had to take refuge under Bhagwan Sanat Kumar for the knowledge of Brahmvidya. There is no upliftment, no emancipation, and no liberation without knowledge. And there is no knowledge without the conscious nectarous flow of the Sadguru. And there is no way to have this without satsang. True and complete knowledge is one that is free of doubt and ignorance of any entity. It may be an inert entity or a conscious entity. But true and complete knowledge of spiritual concepts is found only through satsang. Satsang is at the root of all knowledge and mantras. Without the complete knowledge of the science of Brahmvidya, true peace and happiness cannot be attained. And therefore, what must we do? We must take refuge under the Sadguru to attain knowledge of spiritual entities. Merely reading books and scriptures will not give us the true experiential knowledge of entities. Therefore, books and scriptures cannot give us real peace. Mere theoretical talks devoid of experiential wisdom of yoga meditation is also futile. It just results in arguments and discord. The complete understanding of spiritual entities can be had only through the company of a complete Sadguru. The practice of meditation needs to be preceded by the knowledge of the true philosophy. And satsang is the best way to beautifully acquire this knowledge, and with ease as well. So what must we do? We just need to serve the Sadguru and the saints to get the knowledge of all entities through their satsang. And thereafter, we can make progress in the inner experiential pathway of yoga meditation, which is again preached by the Sadguru. And that conscious meditation practice helps us transcend beyond Prakriti on a conscious pathway, which is called the Chetan Path, which has no base or support of the mortal world. Knowledge leads to devotion, which is called bhakti. Knowledge leads to the attainment of the Lord through that bhakti, and thereafter salvation and bliss. The root base of knowledge is seva or service and satsang. Life which is caught in the web of attractions of the body, wealth, glory, fame, sensory gratification of the subjects of the mind, and devoid of the satsang is far removed from devotion. This kind of life destroys knowledge and is sorrowful. Pure souls do not suffer from any kind of attachment and doubt, even if they face multiple challenges in performing the service or attending the satsang. They firmly believe their true philosophy and they have full faith in the position of the Sadguru, and they keep progressing towards the goal. So satsang is like the kalpa tree. It is like a mythological kalpa tree, which fulfills all the desires through the efforts of good intellect, good character, and good behavior. Satsang awakens the conscious energy of the soul. It disconnects it from crooked thoughts and ways and unfolds its pure virtues. It is that life force and the light of that pathway of life which dispels the darkness of ignorance. Without this, life goes into darkness. Self-character cannot be improved, nor can any divine mannerisms be inculcated. Depraved life is not able to see the upliftment even after the discovery of the true path. And this causes downfall, bondage, and predisposition of the soul, which needs to be thoroughly researched and understood by reading of the spiritual texts and by attending the satsang. Satsang helps to turn the consciousness of the soul inwards into the deep inner remembrance and devotion of the Lord, leading to an increase in inner love. The prayer of the Sadguru and talk of his greatness leads to the purification of the soul and adequately conditions it to get into the devotion and the meditation practice of Vihangam Yoga. Satsang leads to the fulfillment of all the four fruits of dharma, artha, kam, and moksha, that is the righteousness, wealth, pleasure, and salvation. And through the guidance of satsang, the pathway of life remains pure and progresses on a truthful path. The spiritual understanding of the deep secrets of Brahmvidya can be different in different seekers of different eligibility levels. It can be separated in time and it can be different. The level of understanding may be different as well. Various people have various ways in which they try to gain eligibility, like mantra chanting, penances, fire oblations, pilgrimages, donations, etc. They also are good, but they bear fruit over a very long period of time. Similarly, there are these various yoga methodologies like mantra yoga, laya yoga, raja yoga, hatha yoga, through which eligibility is attained over long periods of time. The same results are obtained through Vihangam yoga meditation and satsang within moments, because it gives enhanced eligibility, knowledge for devotion, and liberation and peace. When we attend satsang, or when we have a desire to serve, perform seva, and we have a desire to benefit others, these deeds come under the category of special deeds or Vishesh karma. And conduct of special deeds are great means for the renunciation of the mortal world. The service of the Sadguru, attending the satsang, and devoting oneself to the Supreme Being, which is the bhakti, these are the three essential and meaningful objectives in the mortal world. They should be pursued with discipline. Only through the service of the Sadguru and having his company does the meditator get a complete experiential understanding of the internal, mystical, conscious world of devotion. And thereby he makes his life successful, meaningful, and complete. So in conclusion, it is important for us to realize that complete meditation or sadhana requires seva, that is service. It requires satsang and bhakti. The lack of even one of these restricts or retards spiritual progress. The satsang, the self-reading of spiritual literature of the Sadguru lead to a good theoretical understanding of the various entities, and they also result in the development of the intellect or the buddhi. So with this, we come to the end of today's presentation. In the next episode, we will discuss the importance of seva or service and sadhana or the meditation itself as the remaining two pillars of the 4S framework of Vihangam Yoga towards the acquisition of eligibility for the grant of the knowledge of Brahm Vidya by the Sadguru. Thank you for your patient listening.
Swadhyay has it got some, how does Swadhyay and self-discipline go together? Is there something that you would like to add to that, Saurabh?
Swadhyay and self-discipline. So why are we doing Swadhyay? We are doing Swadhyay for two purposes, but basically both the purposes are meant towards self-analysis, self-study. So in the process of what is the reason why we want to do a self-study? Self-study has got two aspects. One is the internal aspect and the other is the external aspect. For the external aspect, we are trying to get in inputs. It can be knowledge. It can be a comparison through our intellect. As we said, we are trying to weigh ourselves with others. We are trying to benchmark ourselves with others to see what is it that we lack versus those whom we consider our ideals. And that gives us the inspiration, that builds in the inspiration to do something. It basically acts as a motivator for self-development. So this is the external aspect of it. We are trying to compare, contrast, and grow. In the process, we are also gaining theoretical knowledge of the various aspects of Brahm Vidya, for example. When we delve into spiritual literature, it also gives us inputs of various kinds. One is core spirituality in terms of telling exactly how various entities are characterized, how in which form or shape do various entities exist, what is the relationship between one entity and the other, what is our relationship with the different entities. So that is the factual understanding. The second part of spiritual literature, Swarved, is also the art of living. it teaches us, it tells us what we need to do to become more eligible. So when we are doing this swadhyay, when we are doing this self-study, which is oriented towards the external world for taking in inputs, we are bringing that input in. That also tells us where is it that we stand versus what is it that we need to do. So it is a process of calibration that happens in the process. The second part of it is the internal self-introspection. So from the outside, we got data and inputs. It showed us where things stand on the outside world. Then when we delve deep within, it tells us where we stand with respect to those benchmarks. And the moment you have this gap analysis, you automatically know what to do. You become more aware in the process. That is the journey of Swadhyay, as I think.
Thank you, Saurabh.